All right, we are 2 minutes past the hour. I think we can, seems like most people who are going to join are here. Sirkin, are you there? Can you
Hello, hello.
check 1, 2? Good. Um, Great. Well, thank you all very much for making the time to join us today. We're very excited to take you through this presentation on what comes next for Grantmakers on Salesforce now that Foundation Connect is going away. Today we're going to have myself and Sirkin are going to be taking you through the presentation, and then we're going to, so anyways, we'll go through the presentation. Introductions are going to be the first thing on the menu, and then we're going to go through a Foundation Connect migration case study. We're going to cover some things you need to know about the migration and what's coming up. Then we'll go through some actual options, and then Sirkin is going to take us through a demonstration of grant making before we open it up to Q&A. So that is our run of show today. Without any further ado, let me first of all thank you all again for joining. We hugely appreciate it. One of the things I learned when I worked at Salesforce was to lead with gratitude. So very grateful for everyone's time today. My name is Stuart Longley. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Agile Cloud Consulting. If you're not familiar, if we haven't met before, my big claim to fame in this world is that I was the General Manager for Foundation Connect for a number of years when I was at Round Corner. And then after the acquisition of Foundation Connect at Round Corner by Salesforce, I was part of the Salesforce.org team building out the philanthropy focus, which was a new muscle at the time back in 2019. Obviously, it's been grown very quickly and very strong. And one of those very important people of that team is Sirkin. So I'll let Sirkin do an introduction of himself.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Hi, everyone. Sirkin Bilgi, he, him pronounced, and I'm a lead strategic solution engineer at Salesforce. I'm a specialist SE working with foundations, and I've been working with foundations for the last 15 years as a professional services leader. And within the Salesforce ecosystem for the last 6 years, I'm happy to be here partnering with Agile Cloud Consulting about this important pivotal moment in the transition of Foundation Connect to the next stop in your journey. So happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Sirkin. All right. So a little bit about Agile Cloud, if you're not familiar with our firm. We are a Salesforce Summit partner, which is the highest tier. It's the old platinum if you've been around long enough to remember the metal tiers. So we are way up there in terms of where we sit in the ecosystem. We just completed our, I say just, at the end of January, we finished our 400th project as a company. We have over 220 certifications across the Salesforce ecosystem, and we have over 60 staff here in the US. One of my business partners is in the Salesforce Hall of Fame, Sharif Shalan. We hold a unique distinction in the Salesforce world in that we're a Salesforce partner, but we're also a certified PDO, which is product development outsourcer, which there's only about 35 Salesforce partners that have that designation. And it means that we're certified to build apps on the App Exchange. So the nice thing with our practice is that we build apps for folks and then we implement them. It also means that we have very strong technical capabilities when it comes to things like integrations and other technical aspects of what we do. We're very proud Pledge 1% member. We have a great rating on the App Exchange, and we've also been featured as one of the fastest growing companies in the country the last few years. And just for everyone's reference, Agile Cloud was started the day of the Round Corner acquisition, January 15th, 2019. So all these statistics and this team have only been around since for about 5 years now. So we have grown very, very quickly, and our reputation has really been something we've spoken for itself over the last few years. Our grant making expertise is very deep, as you can imagine, because of our history with Foundation Connect and a lot of grant making organizations. We had roughly 190 or so Grantmakers on Foundation Connect the day of the acquisition. And we worked with a lot of them, either doing the implementation, product support, product development. We had a great customer base. We've been really fortunate enough to continue working with some of those organizations, and many more have joined since the Agile Cloud banner was raised. So a few folks here. One of the things that really sets us apart is that our team is over 60 staff. So we have a lot of capacity when it comes to delivering problems. It also means we have a lot of great minds here at the company to solve issues that are either new or unique. And that has been a huge strength of ours, in addition to having a fairly unique technical aptitude working with the Salesforce platform. Anyways, enough about Agile Cloud. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about one of our amazing customers and one of the things that we've helped them with around their Foundation Connect migration, which has been a big area of trepidation for a lot of folks over the last couple of years. I think there was a lot of worry after Foundation Connect was acquired if it was going to go away, and then obviously it came back. And now with the sunset being announced, a lot of folks are trying to figure out what to do and how to move forward. So one of the big things that we provide are assessments to determine how and when to migrate from Foundation Connect to the next solution. And we'll talk more about how we do that and what the next solutions will be in some subsequent slides. But these assessments are extremely helpful for really getting everybody in the organization on board. And they really cover two basic components. Well, they cover a lot of different components, but the two basic things we're trying to get towards are assessing your current deployment, assessing your team, and then making recommendations based on those things. Because we have the technology and we have business process, and then we have the people, and we need all of those things to be really in lockstep for these migration projects to go well. And we had a really phenomenal experience working with the McClellan Foundation. We're very fortunate to partner with them to help them walk through this process of making the decision on how to move away from Foundation Connect. And then ultimately, we were selected to help them actually go through the migration process. They'll actually hopefully be going live in the next 2 weeks. Really proud of what we were able to do with McClellan and moving them from what do we do to having a fully fledged solution and going live in short order. And some of the other considerations that take place as we're doing these assessments, things we like our clients to be thinking about is, how is this going to affect your users? Are they internal or external users? What kind of customization do you already have in your Salesforce instance? Is it a highly customized instance? Is it pretty straightforward? Are there other use cases within your Salesforce instance that we need to take into consideration? What kind of integrations or third-party apps are you currently leveraging? Do you have a custom integration with GuideStar? Do you have are you using Watchdog for international watch list checks? Conga Composer and all the form tools obviously have or can be woven very deeply into Foundation Connect deployments, and taking all those things into consideration are super critical. And then the process. Is this a good time to assess your business process and how you make your grants and how you manage your grants process? Or is this a better time just to copy over what you currently have? Is your process working well? So you'll hear me, if we end up spending any time together, I use a lot of home renovation analogies. So it's basically are we rebuilding your process, or are we remodeling your process? So, and that's super critical, because if we're going to remodel, if we're going to reinvent your process along with moving you to a new system, has a huge implication for how we're going to staff a project, and also how you are going to get internal buy-in, and ultimately the timeline to do those sort of things, versus just a lift and shift, which is much more straightforward. And then what does the future state look like for you all? What is your ideal future state? How do you want to take advantage of the Salesforce platform? What haven't you been able to do that you wanted to, or what don't you want to lose by going through a migration? Are also all other considerations that we're going to take into account when we're putting together this comprehensive assessment document. And all of this is written out in a fairly comprehensive, kind of 20 to 50 page document, depending on how complex your deployment is. So there's a really strong work product that you can then take and work with other implementation partners on, or use that to shop around for pricing purposes, or it becomes that blueprint for how we do the rest of the build if we continue working together. So a little bit about one of our customers, what they've accomplished, some of the things to think about as you're considering moving off of Foundation Connect, and we'll talk more about how these considerations can have ripple effects for the rest of the build. But before we go any further, I wanted to hand things over to Serkan to talk a little bit about some other considerations that you should be keeping in mind.
All right, thank you, Stuart. So I wanted to distill down 4 questions. Just want to take 2 minutes to talk about high level what you need to know about the Foundation Connect sunset and what resources are available to you. So as you may have heard, the communications went out a while back, but the sunset, the official Foundation Connect sunset date is January 31st, 2026. So this is the ultimate date for Foundation Connect to be turned off. What that means is you will not have access to Foundation Connect related functionality in your system anymore, and you will not be able to see your Foundation Connect related data in Salesforce anymore. Which when we make this announcement, one of the popular questions that came out was, are extensions possible? This was an extended timeline. The original sunset date was 2025, and the product team has granted an extension, putting us out to January 31st, 2026. We do not anticipate any further extensions either at the individual level or at a more product level. So the third question, the logical progression here is, when should I start? Our recommendation obviously is not to wait and start now. Start looking at your processes, start talking to your existing relationships with partners in the ecosystem, folks who have gone through these transitions, and then just start these conversations internally and with your partners and with Salesforce. So along those, what resources are available? Who can you talk to? First of all, Salesforce account executive, they are your quarterback who's going to be able to bring all of the resources together for you based on your needs. So reach out to your Salesforce account executives and start a conversation there. We also have a fantastic industry advisor available to all of us, Ursula Stewart. So we want to make sure that she's also available for these conversations. Ursula not only is a Salesforce industry advisor, she's also one of the first customers of Foundation Connect when she was on the customer side. So very exciting. She'll have a lot of real-time experiences to share with you. And then, yeah, your partners and your peers. We highly recommend talking to your partners and your peers to see what their experience is like, if they're going through the same extension anxiety or the sunset anxiety, or if they've already started the process. There are a lot of user groups out there. There's a Foundation Connect specific user group available to you as well. So please leverage those networks. Back to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Serkan. January 31st, 2026. Circle on your calendars. It's going to be a big day. Before we go any further and start talking about kind of nuts and bolts solutions, I wanted to launch a couple of polls just to get a pulse check on all of our attendees and see, what you're thinking, what you're feeling about this, and what you're planning, so that as we go through Q&A, we can have those sort of things in the back of our minds once the demo is complete. So I'm going to open up poll number 1, and we'll start to see what kind of results we get. And wow, this is very fast. I've never seen this done. It's like watching a stock market ticker. Okay, almost everybody's almost responded. Okay, so the question is, how do you feel about the Foundation Connect transition? 0% of people said they're feeling very confident about it. I don't think I wasn't expecting a lot of yes answers, thumbs up to that one. Some people are feeling okay. Half the group is actually 50-50. 50% of the group is feeling okay about the transition. Hopefully that means you have at least some form of a game plan. And half the group is feeling concerned. So this will probably be a very helpful webinar for you in terms of what you do next. But we got Almost everybody to respond in a minute, so that's pretty great. The second poll here, launched. Okay, end that poll, and then I launched this one. Got it. So poll number 2 is, where are you in the process of transitioning? And the options are, haven't started yet, just starting now, considering different tools on Salesforce, considering different tools outside of Salesforce, mid-implementation, or we've completed their migration. So if you've completed your migration, this probably isn't the webinar for you. But for everybody else, a bunch of results have come in, so we'll give everyone another 15 seconds, 10 seconds or so, and then we'll wrap this one up. All right, I need 2 more responses. If you haven't responded yet, do it quick. All right, thank you, everybody. 39% of the group has not started yet, so you're already on the naughty list. Time is going to be running short. 17% are just starting now. 22% are considering different tools on Salesforce. 17% are also looking outside of Salesforce. And 6%, just one person who responded, is actually mid-implementation. And if that's Richie at McClellan Foundation, then we need some other folks to get on that list pretty soon too. So big group haven't even started yet. I think that's kind of what we expected to see in terms of the theme here. And then we end that poll. And then the last one, before we go on with the presentation, is what are your biggest concerns with this? And this is actually multiple choice. So you can pick multiple options from this list, but it's cost, timing, potential disruption, selecting the right technology, and change management. All right. People are very fast on the polls today. Well, it looks like almost everybody's responded so far. So cost, a couple more, here we go. Okay, selecting the right technology is number 1. And I think that makes a lot of sense, right? This is the type of product you're gonna live with for a long time. Making sure you make the right buying decision is really critical. And these are not inexpensive decisions. Number 2 is cost. I can't say I'm surprised by that one. I think everyone's concerned with costs associated with these sort of things, especially given some of the licensing that Foundation Connect customers had. Potential disruption and timing being the other 2. Timing these sort of things is always tricky with grant cycles, and there will be a disruption. So we should just take the potential out of that. This will certainly in some way inject some disruption into your day-to-day. And then the last one, and I got to tell you, I'm a little disappointed. The last one is change management. So maybe that means everybody is right on the money with change management. And they're all change management experts certified by the ProSci Institute. Or maybe we're not thinking about how important change management is in these sort of projects. So we can always talk more about that, but change management is a super, super critical element of these projects to get right for them to be successful and successful long-term. So thank you all for taking a little time to go through the polls. This is super helpful, and hopefully it helps you feel a little bit more at ease as you see how some of your peers are feeling about this transition as well. So we'll click share results button. All right, cool. So moving forward, what do we do? What are your options? How do we migrate you off of Foundation Connect and onto something that's going to be sustainable and a good fit for you long term? And it really falls into a couple of different buckets, really 3 different buckets. The first one is custom build. The second one is custom build on outbound funds. And then the third one is the new nonprofit cloud grant making. There's no wrong answer for these. It really just depends on where you are as an organization. But a couple of things to keep in mind when you're thinking about custom build is, this is really good for organizations that have a very heavily customized Salesforce instance, or have multiple use cases for Salesforce, where rebuilding those other use cases might be more cost intensive and time intensive than just pulling things out of Foundation Connect out of your current Salesforce instance. There's a lot of considerations that go into custom build. There's a lot of impact around licensing and the apps you're going to use. And potentially there's going to be a need for custom code to replicate some Foundation Connect functionality that you can't live without. And that's going to be unique to everybody. Custom build with outbound funds, very similar to custom build, with the exception that outbound funds is a common data model. And it is an app that we can install into your Salesforce instance. I'm a big fan of trying to simplify things as much as possible for our clients. So instead of inventing, say, like our own version of what grant making could be in Salesforce, we really like outbound funds because there's a huge array of customers already using outbound funds, and at least you're on a common data model with other grant makers. And there could be some downstream benefits of that with report sharing, integrations, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third option is nonprofit cloud grant making. And this is a really great solution for organizations where you want to be able to take advantage of all the innovation that Salesforce is going to be releasing, whether it's grant making specific, industry specific, or just Salesforce platform specific. So there's a few different angles where innovation can come from these days, which is really exciting. If you want to be able to take advantage of customer support, product support, and the enhancements that come out multiple times a year, support's going to be a really big thing for a lot of organizations. Because if you go custom, you're in the software business, you're your own support team all of a sudden, or you have to rely on a third party to help support you. And then the third thing with grant making, which I think makes it a really attractive option, is that it has the rest of the expanded nonprofit cloud toolkit available. So outcomes, the outcomes module is going to see a big update. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it's going to see a big update in June. I think that's going to be a big, have a huge benefits for organizations, particularly concerned with tracking their impact, understanding their outcomes of their grants. And then also has Omni Studio, as well as some of the other components of nonprofit cloud. Omni Studio, if you haven't played with it, is an incredibly powerful solution, and it can do things like generate documents, build forms, and do some of the things we used to rely on third-party apps for. So it can also help with some cost savings. But those are really your three primary areas for where you can go from Foundation Connect. I should have put a footnote here, but there's also a product that was kind of between Foundation Connect and nonprofit cloud grant making called Grants Management Module. I think for all intents and purposes, that's not really going to be a great option for most people moving forward, but I just want to call it out so that it is something we could consider, but it's really likely not a good route to go. And when we're thinking about how we compare these options and where the pros and cons, I put together a very brief list here. There's a much more comprehensive list that can be reviewed. But I think the most important part of either of these options is they're both powered by the same Salesforce platform. So this is the same technology across the board. It's the same technology that powers Foundation Connect. And you're really going to be able to take advantage of everything that Salesforce is able to provide. So, Foundation Connect is at this point, a 16-year-old product. It worked really well for a long time, but it was not without its rough edges. And sometimes that required different types of workarounds, or you couldn't take advantage of something in Salesforce the way you thought you could. Communities has always been a good example of how Foundation Connect built kind of was being built while communities was evolving, and there was always some kind of duplicative functionality between the two. So in either case, you really get the benefits of being in the core Salesforce platform, whether you're taking advantage of nonprofit cloud grant making or not. And it'll really, in either case, really reduce the amount of workarounds or gotchas that came along with Foundation Connect. think the other big thing to call out on here is cost. I know I get a lot of questions about licensing costs for NPC. They seem really expensive. Custom build looks cheaper, which isn't necessarily the case. Foundation Connect customers got a lot of licensing concessions just based on the arrangement we had with Salesforce at Round Corner. So kind of in either case, there's still going to be licensing considerations. If you decide to go custom, there's going to be more stuff that you're probably going to need, whether it be community licenses or sandboxes or different editions of Salesforce. And then with NPC grant making, what we're seeing is that conversations with your account executive can inform pricing very in more detail than what's just on paper. So I would encourage anyone who's concerned with the cost of NPC grant making, nonprofit cloud grant making, to speak with your account executive just to really understand what the true cost could end up looking like. Because we're seeing things be a little bit more favorable after a conversation. Obviously, there's some other pros and cons. Product support versus being reliant on a third party. Technical debt accumulation over time. One of the things people don't think about with custom build is what technical debt is going to look like 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And I think in both cases, you're going to have a great community around you. And then obviously, you're going to take into account all the third-party apps you're going to take advantage of and how they're going to interact with one solution versus the other. So just a few things to take into consideration. There's a lot of pros and cons, and some are going to weigh more heavily than others based on where you are as an organization and your usage of the technology. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Serkan to go through this piece of the demo. And then I'm going to take a look at the questions. If you haven't been asking questions in the chat while we've been going through this, please feel free to start to enter those now. And then Serkan and I will answer questions after the demo component. And then from there, we'll see what else might come up. And yeah, hand off to you, Serkan.
All right. Thank you, Stuart. So folks, I don't have any slides to show, but basically I want to spend the most time in the system as possible to show you what our new grant making solution looks like. Some of you, this will be a familiar view because we are leveraging the Salesforce platform. So regardless of what product or solution you're using, as long as your Salesforce platform is the one that's powering it, you will see a lot of familiar things, which would be a good thing for you because there's obviously countless hours of training and configuring that went into your current foundationConnect systems, especially if you're on the Lightning interface, you'll see a lot of familiar things. But one of the things that I wanted to start with, which, oh, I cannot share my screen. Would you mind stopping your screen share? Thank you.
There you go.
The first thing that we're going to start with is it's a little bit of a orientation before we dive into the system. It's our data model, which is publicly available. Don't get intimidated by it. What I want to do is basically focus on some of the big changes that are in our current grant making data model. So I'm not going to talk about all of these objects. This is obviously available on our public website. But a couple of things to call out here. One is you'll notice we do at the top of the hierarchy, we do have our program and funding opportunity objects. So these two are basically allowing you to track your key strategic initiatives that you're funding, key program areas that you're serving your community through funding opportunities. Funding opportunity and the participant will be the objects that allow you to open up your calls or a call for applications, call for proposals, however your terminology is in your organization. So those will be available on your grant seeker portal to allow grant seekers to apply for either through public means, or you would be able to leverage the participant object here, which would allow you to invite privately a select group of community members to apply for this specific funding opportunity. From there, we're moving on to the application side of things. Application basically is the intake mechanism that's available to your grant seekers. Through a form, your applicants will be able to submit their applications to you for review and processing and making a decision. As part of the application, there are a bunch of objects here that I'm not going to dive in for today's purposes, but there are a lot of related objects that allow you to enrich the application process, such as the collaboration piece and then document checklist items that would allow you to capture different sections of the application, like document audited financial statements or board members or milestones that you would like to keep track of. And then you'll be able to review your applications using the application review object. One major change from Foundation Connect to grant-making data model is the split between individual application and funding award. I've been talking to many of you about this change. It's a very exciting change, and this came into effect after talking to numerous foundations in the industry. Basically, the statement behind this is that not every application becomes a funding award, and not every funding award requires an application. And for that reason, and many others, the product team has split these into two. So you'll have a revolving section of your intake and your transaction with the grantee through the individual application. And then once the decision is positive, then it will turn into a funding award, where now you can keep track of post-award related activities, such as funding disbursements, funding award requirements, which are your progress reports and financial reports and whatnot, and then also amendments. On top of those, we'll have the budget capabilities. So you'll have your internal and external budgeting capabilities that allow you to keep track of buckets of funding that are available for drawing down and linking to the disbursements through budget allocations, and also setting up a template for your external grantees to fill out the budget template as well. One thing that I'll call out that is coming out in our next release, which is not represented on this public document yet, is the linkage to the outcomes data model. So outcomes data model is also publicly available on this website, and you would be able to see what that allows you to keep track of from impact measurement perspective. And that data model will be weaved into this grant-making data model by our next release in summer. So some exciting stuff there, which will allow you to define certain outcome activities at the funding opportunity level, allowing your grant seekers to define their own outcome activities that they're hoping to perform and accomplish during their project, so they can give you what they're planning on doing during the application. And because of the data relationships between application and award, they'll be able to report back with their actuals at the post-award stage. So now that we've oriented you from the data model perspective, let's take our eyes off from this eyesore and then start looking at our grant-making solution. We are looking at the grant-making app inside Salesforce. As you may know, there are many other apps that you can add to your system. Grant-making app is now including our standard objects that we've looked at that come with the nonprofit cloud for a grant-making license. As soon as that license is acquired, this data model can be turned on, and these objects are automatically enabled in your instance. We start our journey with a suggested homepage for Grantmakers. Most of you would be familiar with what this looks like. You know, it's pulling real-time data from your system. All of the objects that are part of the grant-making data model are reportable. They're all Experience Cloud enabled as well. So you would be able to consume your objects, build reports and dashboards, connect them to Tableau, connect them to CRMA, also be able to expose these objects to your Experience Cloud users. All right, at the top of our hierarchy, we are looking at our funding opportunities. So let's go ahead and look at our funding opportunities. All right, as part of our demo, we do have 2 active funding opportunities here. Let's pick up our Access to Nutritious Grants, FY24. As part of the product, there'll be some standard fields that come with the funding opportunity object. You know, the statuses that you're seeing here are the ones that I've added for demo purposes. This is going to follow basically how you structure your own programs. But funding opportunity basically allows you to keep track of the calls that you're opening for applicants to apply, or you can make these invite only and then invite folks to submit their applications individually to this funding opportunity. It's going to be keeping information like funding amounts, what budget template should be used, and any other custom fields that you would like added to this record to enrich the contents of this funding opportunity. CRM activities are available. Files can be uploaded and made available to your grant seekers. And then once the grant seekers log in, they'll be able to access this funding opportunity if it's set as public. So for demo purposes, what I'll be doing is I'm going to jump in and log in as one of my grant seekers, Isabella Miller, and let's see what her experience is going to look like when logging into the portal. There we go. All right. We are looking at our out-of-the-box grant seeker portal template. This portal is designed to be turnkey. So as it comes out of the box with the icons and the list views that are available to your grant seekers logging in will be able to complete tasks like browsing existing funding opportunities, seeing their application history, their funding award history, and then more, which is looking at their progress report, completing them. Grant making license is powered by Sales and Service Cloud licenses behind the scenes. So it is going to give you access to both Sales and Service Cloud objects. What that means is basically you'll have object to knowledge articles and case management functionality. So you can make knowledge articles searchable and available on the grant seeker portal. You can allow your grant seekers to use a case object to submit their issues to you, and that would help you leverage Service Cloud features like queuing and case forming and attaching knowledge articles and suggestions around resolution around the cases. Once we go under funding opportunities, we'd be able to see what is available to us. We can click into existing funding opportunities and then see the details of it. If this opportunity is available, we would be able to apply for this opportunity. Let's go pick up one that has already been started. So I'm going to go under applications, and you can see there's one that's already in progress. I can pick this up. And from there, we're looking at what could be a very straightforward application process. We're currently leveraging a page layout, but you also have tools available to you for your application forms to be built, such as Salesforce Flows, Omni Studio, and also third-party tools are still available to connect to your Experience Cloud, like Form Assembly, FormStack, Titan, or other form tools that you might be wanting to connect to Salesforce. Once the application has been filled out and the budget components have been filled in, show that one, we would be able to submit this application for approval, and then the grantees won't be able to interact with this, edit this record. The other thing that I wanted to show before I move away from the grant seeker portal is the ability to see our existing awards. So as a grant seeker, if I have an active award, I would be able to find that in my list view. I'll be able to see the details of this award, which application it's been linked to, what the requirements are, if there are any financial reports, narrative reports that I need to fill out. We're also promoting transparency around the process, so grant seekers should be able to log in and see their disbursement schedule, the dates and the statuses of them. So the idea is to make sure that this portal becomes a one-stop shop for your grant seeker and grantee community. So any issues they have or any post-award activities they need, such as raising amendment requests, can be done through this single portal. So if a grantee says, I need to request more money, or if I need to ask for a no-cost extension, they would be able to fill out this form, and then you will be able to action this and give them the necessary timeline extensions or make the other types of amendments to their existing award. All right, going back to our homepage, come back to our internal view. We are now going to look at our individual applications. This is the transactional record that you're using to go back and forth with the grant seeker. You'll notice that we have a bunch of applications that are in progress. You'll be able to keep track of them. We can also see the applications that are submitted. So I have a list view here that I've specifically filtered for those, and I'll be able to pick them. Once I pick up my application, I can leverage multiple things, one of which is the approval process that is currently also leveraged in Foundation Connect for some customers. So approval processes can be leveraged for the review process. This is a very streamlined and a simplified thumbs up, thumbs down approval from either single or multiple people in your organization. It can be asynchronous, it can be sequential. So however you are basically doing your review process can be handled through the approval process. If you have more complex or robust needs around reviews, such as capturing scores and rubrics and additional comments and whatnot, we do have the application review object available to you. On top of that, we are leveraging action plans. Action plans are available now on every object. So you would be able to leverage existing action plans. Basically, action plans are predetermined list of tasks and checklists that can be associated with records. What that means is basically if an application comes in, tell the system to associate this action plan that would associate 3 tasks that certain people need to complete. So let's look up an existing one. Let's see if there we go. If this is a US grant, this is their initial application. We would like to run the due diligence. And I would like to start this process today. Click next. You'll notice there are some predetermined tasks and then checklist items that need to happen. So as soon as I click save, of course, it wouldn't be a demo without an error, but it will be able to assign those tasks and then checklist items for you to complete. And then take the necessary actions to move this application from submitted to additional review processes. It's just approved. For demo purposes, I'm going to be moving over to the funding award process now. The funding award is basically once an application has ended its journey with the happy path, so it's approved, we will be able to create a funding award and then linking it to the application that it came from. So if I were to open up improving food safety security, I will be able to see certain details of my funding award. I can start capturing the details of it. So the start date of my award will be this week, and it will be a year-long project. I can provide additional details, and I can see if it was a link to an application. Let's link it now. I will be able to see that information here. The other benefits of Nonprofit Cloud for grant making is the Omni Studio tools that are included. One of those tools in the toolkit is the ability to generate documents. So document generation is now something that you can leverage as part of your grant making product. So we're going to see an example of that. As soon as I click create award letter, it knows that I already have an active template that I'm using for grant agreements. So it is going to go ahead and then generate that document for me. It is going to merge all sorts of information from different records in the system. It may be funding awards, so the award details, such as who we're awarding, how much we're awarding for, any special clauses that you would like to add. All of that information can be included in this document. As we scroll down, you can also see that it has access to additional objects such as disbursements and progress reports, so you can put those into tables, making sure that your grantees are signing these schedules before they're committing to this grant. And then there are a couple of things you can do with this. One, you can download this as Word and then make necessary edits if you wanted to email the grantee separately. You can download the PDF and then share this out, or you can send this to DocuSign envelope, which would also kickstart a document signature chain through DocuSign. So you have options there in order to consuming this document in a way that you use to communicate with your grant seekers. Once the funding award has been active, you will also have access to the related objects like we talked about, the requirements and the disbursements. Disbursements can be linked to budgets. So you can link these disbursements to budget allocations, so you can draw down money from specific budgets. Just show you, you can pull half of this disbursement from certain budgets here. So I'm going to pull half of that from access to nutritious, call it 50%. And then the other 50% will come out of health and wellness budget. All right. You'll also notice that similar to your current foundationConnect system, you have the ability to link your disbursements to requirements. So that makes your disbursements contingent upon receiving these necessary progress reports or financial reports, and then approving them before this disbursement can be released and then processed. You'll notice action plans and document checklist items and files, also other objects that are relevant to your disbursement. So you will be able to have a comprehensive view of how these awards are tracking, how much activity you've done on the disbursement side and the progress report side, etc. All right. Let's look at funding award requirements. You'll notice that we have different types here. It's our award requirement object, and it allows you to keep track of different types, just financial reports or contracts. If you wanted to opt out of using DocuSign, if you wanted to use a requirement object for the grant agreement, you would be able to use this object to go back and forth with your grant seeker. All right. On top of these, we have access to industry common components. These come in many, many forms. We have now access to a lot of these objects that were part of our industry clouds and now part of Nonprofit Cloud as well. You'll be able to leverage tools like business milestones. So if you have grants that you awarded, you would be able to keep track of these milestones. Awarded. New executive member, if they become a peak member, if they become a tag member, if they are one of your co-funders, if you've run a charity check, things like that. And the automation, creation of these business milestones can be automated as well. On top of that, we have access to visual components like actionable relationship charts like ARC. So that allows you to look at your data in a more visual way and interact with your data in a visual way as well. So it will be demonstrating how different objects relate to each other. So it's giving you a holistic view of how your organizations and your contexts relate to each other. But also it's not limited to those objects. You can turn it off for any, basically. And here we can see how this organization has an application history with you, and then if any of those turned into awards. So advocates. Here we can see the application that came in, and from there I can directly open it up. There's also another visual component called Timeline. It's a very nifty and nimble tool that is super easy to configure. That gives you the ability to visualize your records, your awards. So here I can see my award, and then I can expand this and see the details of my award as well. So this is a very nice way of taking your experience, not limiting your experience to just list views, but giving you the ability to look at your related records in a more visual way and an interactive way. So we can see the details of the award. We can see the disbursements that are part of that award. We can see the requirements that are part of that award in just one single list view, timeline view. And from there, I can click and jump into that record. And if I ever need to, I can also create new records from here as well. All right, and on top of that, some of you are familiar with some of the views that we've been looking at, all of your activities and chatters, all of the CRM capabilities, and then all the platform level tools that are available to you, like lightning reports and dashboards and flows and approval processes, and all of those are still available to you through the platform. That's all the time that I wanted to take for today. If you would like to see more, we do have recorded content for the grant making product, or reach out to your AE to get a demo from us as to what your life could look like in using Nonprofit Cloud for grant making. So that's it. I will turn it back over to you, Stuart.
Thank you very much, Sirkin. It's great to see nonprofit cloud grant making solve some problems that Foundation Connect sometimes had, like one record for the grant or the application and the grant. So I think that was something that we always answered a lot of questions about back in the day. Some questions have come in. So let's move to Q&A, and then we have some next steps we can cover with the last 2 minutes that we have, in about 6-7 minutes. So Jonathan asks, how long do these projects usually take? That's a question for me. So it depends on what direction we decide to go, and how complex your existing instance is. And sorry, I have the questions over here. So that's a big factor. The assessments are a good way to figure that out, in terms of really what breadth and depth there is, although we do have a lot of pre-sales calls just to dive into those questions in more depth. Generally, grant makers are very deliberate in making decisions. So factor in the amount of time it takes for your organization to come to making a decision and sign paperwork. Because myself and most other partners aren't going to get started without any paperwork signed. And then once we have paperwork signed, kind of on average, it's probably 6 to 9 months. Bigger projects could be closer to a year. Smaller projects might be a little faster, although I'm not really seeing anything faster than 4 months for a really basic deployment. So it's a tough question to answer, but think 4 to 12 months and hopefully something in between. And it just really depends on where you are. We have an anonymous question. I see the Slack icons there. Is that active? What are some of the use cases there now? Slack, I don't know, sir, can you want to take the Slack question? There's obviously a lot of cool stuff we can do with that.
Absolutely. I was actually typing out something, but I'm glad. So Slack can integrate seamlessly with Salesforce, allowing you to interact with your Salesforce records inside of Slack, but also bi-directionally, where you can interact with records from Slack and then make updates to your Salesforce system. Some of the common use cases that I see are creating Slack channels from an application panel, like a bunch of applications that need to be reviewed, or you can have specific Slack channels spun up from certain applications or awards, really based on how you interact with your grantee communities. This can be internal and external, bringing your community into Slack as well, allowing them to sign up into your workspace and then communicating with them through private channels. There's automation capabilities available there. So folks coming in and creating comments or using emojis can trigger automation to update records, change the severity of cases, or a thumbs up or a checkbox could mean they approve the grant, or a thumbs down or an X might mean they need additional revisions and things like that. So there are a lot of possibilities and use cases there.
Great question. And great answer, Sirkin. Is there a list, another anonymous question, is there a list of third-party apps that can be built into Nonprofit Cloud or Outbound Funds module? So I don't know if there's a specific list, but it would depend a bit on the app. By and large, all the apps that Grantmakers would take advantage of are going to be are not going to have like a data model dependency. So generally we see things like form tools, document generation, e-signature, contract lifecycle management, if anyone ever got Spring CM or what's now called DocuSign CLM. Generally, there are a lot of questions around NPC and certain app integrations, generally for fundraising and donation processing. That's where we see most of the potential risk for integration. But for grant makers, we're really not seeing any app dependencies when it comes to, outbound funds, custom, or nonprofit cloud. A good question. That's a well-informed question. And then Samantha asks, can you tell us more about the outcomes management tool? That is a big question, Circuit. I don't know if you have like a 1 or 2 minute version of that
I
product.
Yeah, outcomes management tool. Currently, the first release we just launched it in our past past release. It is a data model that we've added to nonprofit cloud suite of data objects. It allows you to keep track of your impact strategies at the highest level, and then from there you can drill down to outcomes, and then from there you can quantify it by outcome activities and allowing you to report back with either interim or final results that you're collecting from either grantees or from your own programs that you're running through impact periods, which basically allows you to roll up all that information and show you a holistic view of your impact strategy and how much of an impact you're making through different outcome activities and outcomes that you're tracking. The data model is public. I'm happy to paste the link in there in our chat as well. There's also a very useful 3-minute summary video of how that works that our product manager Meg recorded and shared with the public. So I'm going to fish that out now and paste it in the chat.
Thank you, Sirkin. There are some other questions that are coming in. There's some really good ones. Lisa, there's another anonymous person who just asked a question about risk management. I'm going to try to answer that really quick, but before I do, I just want to cover next steps for everybody so we know where to go from here. Obviously, Agile Cloud Consulting, myself and my colleagues are available to help assist with these migrations, help advise on these migrations, and I'll even throw in some original Foundation Connect logo stickers if you care to have one, because I've got a box of them still. In terms of that, moving forward with that, please reach out to myself, my colleague Marisa Lopez. Her email address is here, and this will go out in the deck. If you'd like to learn more from Salesforce, please schedule a time with your account executive or reach out to Ursula Stewart. Her email's here as well. Follow-up items, you'll get the recording of the webinar. We'll send you some materials about the migration. And also we have a success story with McClellan Foundation launching today, which they were very generous to let us use their name and story. So we'll send that along. And then last thing here, April 16th, Sirkin and I are joining forces once again to discuss transitioning to nonprofit cloud grant making. This is going to be more of a general discussion for folks coming off of other GMSs and people who are considering moving off of Foundation Connect or custom builds or whatever it might be. So mark your calendars for April 16th. There'll be some materials going out about that in the next few days. So thank you all very, very much. That brings us right to 1 hour. So if you know me, you knew I was going to take all the time. Thank you all very much for the time and attention. I'm going to try to answer this risk management question really quick because I think it's a great question, and then we'll end the webinar and we'll follow up with other folks offline. So the question from our anonymous attendee is, in general, what is the biggest risk in migrating off of Foundation Connect to one of the 3 products mentioned? The biggest risk. It depends on where you're going. Data model, reporting out and reporting out of the system are always big things that we want to keep in mind. If you're moving to nonprofit cloud, data migration is pretty easy because we already have a mapping built to go from Foundation Connect to nonprofit cloud, and it'll pull over like all the application questions, quizzes, all that Foundation Connect stuff. What data you want to retain, what data you don't want to retain, that's a big thing. I'd say the #1 risk though is people, getting people on board, building buy-in internally, going through the change management aspect. If you have a larger organization, that can be challenging. If you're smaller, it might be easy, but people are always the biggest risk, whether we like it or not. So that's my quick answer. There's a bunch of other technical things that we can go into, and I'm happy to answer those offline. So great question. Want to make sure we covered that one. And there's some other great questions here too, which we'll get back to everybody. So thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Sirkin. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.